coming, and we're gonna start, we'll keep it short and sweet tonight. Thanks for moving inside. Sorry the weather didn't hold. I'm Leah Whiteman, I'm chair of the select board here in town. Cable is recording the ceremony for tonight. It's not going to be live streamed right now, but it's recorded and it'll be on YouTube and local access over the weekend, just for anyone that's looking. This is the Moses Howell Ceremony Award. The Moses Howell Award is dedicated to a exemplary service, public service member of the community. The select board asks for recommendations, nominees from the community, and then we, as a 5-member board, go through and kind of pick an individual to award to recognize. And this the 2023 recipient is Mr. Kenneth Lowe Jr. Let's start with the pledge, and then we have Aria Monaco to sing the Star Spangled Banner for us. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch her so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Thank you, Aria. That was beautiful. Thanks, Susan. I just wanted to thank you all again for coming tonight. We have family here, so thank you for coming out on this stormy night. We have I'll say a few words. We have a former select board member here who actually started the Moses Howell Award who will speak, and Paul will, also on our select board will say some words as well. And then we'll have pictures with Smiley as well. So please enjoy the time with family and friends. I got to know Ken shortly after I moved to town. I'm not a townie. I didn't know him as well as many of you here. But I really appreciated how involved he was with the community. He really cared about the community deeply with Rutland, and I enjoyed all of the conversations that he had and the insight that he could provide, as well as the time and effort that he put into many aspects of town. So thank you for sharing him with us and all of Rutland. I'll let Paul say a couple words, and then Mr. Stillings, and then we'll read the proclamation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I knew Ken as a fellow firefighter. I knew him as a lieutenant on the fire department. I knew him as a select board member. I knew him as a neighbor who always said hi, no matter where he was, no matter where we saw each other, be it the post office or walking by in his yard, as Gail and I often did. And so I just say, Ken was somebody I know, somebody I knew and I was proud to know. And rest in peace, Ken, you've earned it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for inviting me today. I appreciate it. I've been out of town for a couple of years. I'm a Floridian. My name is Jeff Stillings, and I had the honor to serve with Leo on the select board. I believe we started 2019, 2021. So this is all pre-COVID, and I'd like to give just a little history on the significance of this award and who Moses Howe was. So 2019, we started on the select board. I'm trying to learn a little bit about the town, and there are a couple of historical books, and I think the best one about the town of Rutland is a book written by Jonas Reed. He was a school teacher, and this was in the 1800s that he wrote the history book. So I'm reading the book of Jonas Reed, and he's telling the formation of Rutland. We all know that Rutland was kind of founded in 1713, but it took 9 years to get the 60 families and the church and a community grocery store and all the requirements that the Commonwealth at the time required to become a town. So last year in 1722, they met the requirements to become Rutland. But leading up to that were the people of the new community of Rutland, formerly Naquag. And I'm reading in the book by Jonas Howe, and it's talking about the formation of the first town meeting, which was around 1719, and how they were trying to get some structure to the town. And the name kept popping up, Moses and Eunice Howe. And Moses Howe in 1719 was the constable. We didn't have a police department until 1934. Up until that time, constables were the law. And I'm reading, and he was also the first selectman. And he was also a justice of the peace, which means different than the justice of the peace now. And he was also the treasurer. And then he owned a lot of land, parcels of land in there. And then his wife, Eunice, gave birth to the first male-born citizen. For, as we know, that's what was counted. Samuel Howe, the first citizen male of Rutland, and that was around 1719. So I'm looking in there, and I said, this guy was the constable. That was the law of the land. This is the same time when you had to worry about Indian attacks. I believe we had an Indian attack in 1724, where the Reverend and his sons were killed somewhere by the old fire station. And it takes a different meaning of being a lawman in the Wild West, the original Western expansion of that time. And Moses Howe, his name kept popping up. This was a guy who wore a lot of hats. He signified Rutland, right? So he was Mr. Rutland, and which I'll lead into Ken Lowe, who also signified Rutland. So I'm reading this pre-COVID, and I call up the chief, Nick Monaco, and I say, hey chief, I'm reading into this book and I'm learning a little bit about the town. And this name comes up, I think I found our first lawman. And then you check the grave registry and found out that he's buried just a stone's throw from the old fire barn. He's in the old burial ground right up there with his family, his wife and his 10 children. And their descendants, come to find out, go a little off track, is the Amsden family. I got reached out by Lynn saying, hey, we are actually descendants of Moses Howe. So they have a strong footprint in Rutland. So I reached out to the chief and I said, I think this is kind of a big deal. We found out who the first lawman of Rutland was, and he's buried right here. The week of May 15th every year is Police Week. I said, for Police Week, what do you say we just do a simple wreath lay up at the old fire barn? He said, that sounds good. What do you want to do? So I can't do anything small. Starts the stone wall a little bit and get a little bit. Anything worth doing is worth doing big. So we decided to do the podium and get the cable there, and maybe we'll get some musketeers. So I talked to Dennis Suhaki. He goes, yeah, I get some mountain men. We'll come up there, do a musket salute, and we do a nice national anthem and the pledge and a couple of proclamations and maybe a couple of politicians in there. And so let's recognize Rutland PD past and present. So Rutland PD present was there with an honor guard, and former officers, we recognized them, did a musket salute, laid a wreath, and recognized that we found our first founding father and lawman in Moses Howe. So in 2019, the board, we talked about a way to kind of recognize the Citizen of the Year. The Princeton board had Citizen of the Year over there. I said, maybe we could do something special to recognize a citizen who personifies service to Rutland in there. And we talked about it, and I said, here's a guy, Moses Howe. He really needs, his name needs to be out there, just like, even more so than Rufus Putnam. Here's a guy who did more than Rufus Putnam. This guy founded this town, he set the foundation, he wore the first hats, and he held back Indian attacks. You know, he was really where the buck stopped. So the board, we got together and got full support from the board, so let's do an annual Moses Howe Award. And so that's where it started. And I said, okay, well, we gotta do some sort of a plaque. So my buddy at the club, at the Sportsman's Club, we're drinking some beers. And he says, I gotta do some sort of a perpetual plaque, because we don't want to do anything small, you know? And he says, I'm building a bar in Hardwick. I got my own brewery I'm doing right there. And I said, I got some extra wood off the end of this bar. I said, oh, give me some of that, right? So that's why it's kind of shaped like that, because that was the end of his bar. That's where he cut it off in there. And then I knew a guy on Washu Chat or something who did the laser etching. And we did the little, it's a really small print, but it's basically what Leah said, that here's a guy who we found was our first constable, our first lawman. He wore many hats, and that was where it started, 2019. And we started with that was the plan. And then we hit the brick wall with COVID, and it screwed everything. And then we lost John Sonji, and that was devastating, to lose one of our own officers in there. So the very first, well, the second, he was the second. The first one, 2019, was Matt Finuccio and his canine. They were responding to a pursuit in progress from Paxton. I think it was a suicidal drunk guy in there, and he was set up with his canine on 122, I believe, and the guy tried to do, I think, suicide by cop, and rammed the cruiser and really, really hurt the officer, Finuccio, and really, really hurt our canine. And for that, the board gave both of them the first Moses Howe Award. Second year was COVID, hit the brick wall, and we gave that to Detective John Sonji posthumously. Last year, excellent choice with Ron Marsh. This year, with Kenny Lowe, a man who personifies Rutland. I mean, if you think of Rutland, you think of Ken Lowe. Yes, he had a great footprint with the Woo Sox, but he was a guy who enjoyed life. He lived life. If he wasn't in Rutland, he was down in Fort Myers doing the Red Sox down there. Here's a guy who enjoyed life. I grew up with Jeff, consider him one of my best friends in there. So we go way back with the Lowe family. So I came up because Moses Howe is a very big deal, and Kenny Lowe is a very, very big deal. And you get the two of them in the same sentence, it means something. And to have you guys here keeping this on, it means something. And thanks to the select board for keeping this going. It means a lot. And it's what you all put into it. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the honor for allowing me to speak. And it's an honor to be back here as a Moses Howe alumni myself. So congratulations to the Lowe family. Thank you.
We have a proclamation from the Select Board, and I'll read it. Town of Rutland Select Board, a proclamation honoring Mr. Kenneth Lowe Jr., the 2023 Moses Howe Award. Mr. Kenneth Lowe Jr., a beloved family man and Rutland resident, exemplified public service. Mr. Lowe served on numerous town committees, including the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. He served for 25 years on the Rutland Fire Department, and he was an integral member of the Rutland Fire Brigade, continuing to raise funds for RFD and the restoration of the old fire station. Mr. Lowe was a member of the Rutland Sportsman's Club and the First Congregational Church, and he was a treasured usher at the Woo Sox Polar Park, as well as JetBlue Stadium in Florida, but I kept it to Massachusetts, sorry. Mr. Kenneth Lowe Jr. epitomized Rutland's commitment to community and public service. And whereas, upon seeing opportunities to help his community, he was always quick to volunteer help. Whereas Mr. Lowe, a Rutland resident, served the town and townspeople his entire life. Whereas the town of Rutland wishes to recognize the actions of Mr. Kenneth Lowe Jr., a Rutland resident, as an exemplary example of community stewardship. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Rutland, on behalf of its citizens, is grateful to Mr. Kenneth Lowe Jr. for his service to town, and that hereby the town bestows upon Mr. Kenneth Lowe Jr. the 2023 Moses Howe Award. presented on behalf of the Select Board on this 21st day of June 2024, and this day is declared in honor of Mr. Kenneth Lowe Jr. As Jeff alluded to, this plaque that he and his buddies made hangs in the Public Safety Building, and we have the plaque, the name card etched with Mr. Kenneth Lowe Jr. for 2023, and he joins the ranks of Officer Finuccio and K-9 Cooney, Detective John Sanji, Mr. Jeff Stillings, Mr. Ron Marsh, and now Mr. Ken Lowe. So thank you. You're more than welcome to take pictures with this, as well as Smiley. And thank you all. Does anyone else have any other words or comments that they would like to share with the family? Thank you so much for sharing him. I really mean it.
I'd just like to say thank you to the Select Board and the town of Rutland. Kelly and I got married in 1962, and I already lived here, obviously, you all know that, but we decided that we would settle here, and so for
You decided.
I decided. I was trying to think about, I know that Leah, you've said some things that were on the plaque, and Jeff has said a lot of things about Kenny, and I was thinking back myself, and I don't remember a time that Kenny wasn't serving Rutland. It started with the fire department and the fire brigade and the things that have been mentioned here, the Board of Health and the Select Board. And it occurred to me that 4 days before he died, he was still at it. He was at the cemetery supervising, I guess you'd say, the Boy Scouts when they put up the firefighter flags and the firefighter graves. And the next day he said, I think we need to go to the hospital. And 2 days after that, he passed. I'm going to steal a line from what I heard on TV, on CNN yesterday, from when they were talking about, the actor that just died, Sutherland. And his family said, he did what he loved, and he loved what he did. And that pretty much sums it up for what Kenny has done for 60 plus years. So thank you so much for the honor. Thank you seems like an awfully small word, but I can't think of anything better. So thank you all for your support and for this award. It's appreciated.
Thank you. Wow, very nice. Very nice feeling.
Thank you, Clara.
And as Ruthie's sister, I just wanted to mention that behind every wonderful man is a wonderful woman.
And I did want to say one thing. I wasn't going to, but I want you to all know that Kenny did have a life before Rutland. Kenny was the treasurer of his class at South Hadley High School in 1956.
Wow.